Hello Forgers, and welcome to Metasight, a podcast where we discuss SoulForge fusion mechanics, meta, and maneuvers. I'm your host Ankh, and today we're going to be continuing our series on Forgeborn ability deep dives. Today I'm going to be talking about Korok's ability Whirlwind. So let's get into it. So at level 2, Whirlwind reads give a creature +4 attack and move it to any lane. At cycle 3, it's going to give that creature 6 attack, still moving it to any lane, and at cycle 4, you'll give that creature +8 attack and move it to any lane. So this is a very interesting ability, has a lot of different applications, but let's just get the basic stuff out of the way with it. So first thing to note about this ability is that the movement is not optional. So if you are going to give the creature an attack, you do have to move it if you have a free lane. If your board is full, you can still give the creature attack and the movement portion will fail. So the most obvious ways to use Whirlwind are either to push damage by moving your creature into an open lane, increasing its attack, and pushing through for either lethal or a big chunk of your opponent's life. The second most common use case for this is to increase a creature's attack and move it into a favorable trading or catching position. So moving it into a position where you can catch your opponent's creatures, your creature survives, and their creature does not. That's the most basic use of Whirlwind, but there are a lot more ways that we can use this ability. For example, let's look at stealth creatures when we're talking about Whirlwind. So anytime you have a creature with stealth and you are on Forge, ideally what you're going to do is put that either in an open lane or a lane opposing a creature that is in the back row. Now with Whirlwind, you have an option to think very far ahead into pushing a lot of damage with that creature, and let me explain how that works. When you're on Forge and you play the stealth creature in front of a creature in the back row as your first or second play, what you're doing is on that turn, you're going to get that creature through for damage unless your opponent has removal or an aggressive creature. Then the Forge flips. So now you are off Forge and your opponent is on Forge. Their back row creature is going to move to the front. Now your stealth creature is going to be engaged with that creature. This is when you have the chance to use Whirlwind to move it to an empty lane. Now ideally what you're going to do is wait till your second action. Because you're off Forge, you get last say in that ability. So you move your stealth creature into an either newly freed lane or a lane that your opponent was unable to block, and now you've got an increased attack stealth creature that is pushing for damage in an open lane, and that's 2 turns of that creature pushing through stealth damage. Finally, the Forge will flip yet again, and now that your creature is in an open lane, it will mean that any creature that your opponent puts in front of it is most likely going to be in the back lane. So Whirlwind is a very potent ability to push a lot of damage over the course of several turns when you combine it with a stealth creature. The same can be true for using it with creatures with breakthrough. You can move a creature with breakthrough in front of a very weak toughness creature to push lots of extra damage. For example, if they block your high power breakthrough creature with a high health creature of their own, you can move it out over and just break through over a smaller creature that way. So this is one of a very potent use case. It does take timing and it does take forethought. A major theme of these deep dives has been to consider what your Forgeborn abilities are and to think ahead to how you're going to use them rather than just using them strictly on the fly. So one use case, if you have good stealth creatures, be aware of the potential to be able to play those stealth creatures in the pattern I just described. The next use case, especially with Battle for White Fang Pass, is to move that creature into a favorable Exalt lane. That's pretty self-explanatory. If you have an Exalt that's been recently vacated, you can move a creature into that lane and get whatever benefit that Exalt is granting. Another use case for Whirlwind is to give yourself an ability to time movement for creatures when you don't have a creature with mobility to combine with effects that care about movement or positioning. From set 1, one of the most infamous examples of this is the Yeti Warcaller. This creature has an activate ability that lets you do damage to a creature or player, but only if a creature is moved this turn. So by having Whirlwind available, you can at will move a creature and get that Yeti Warcaller ability to trigger at least once guaranteed. Another way to use it is to work with positioning. So the force modifiers Inflaming and Emboldening, they care about giving attack to adjacent creatures. Using Whirlwind, you can take two creatures that are already adjacent to each other and separate them, and then that'll allow you to put the Emboldening or Inflaming creature in between them. This is a great way to add a bunch of extra attack to the board and push a lot of aggressive damage. And finally, another good way to use the Whirlwind ability is to help you move creatures that have a mobility out of a corner. So oftentimes when you have a creature such as Palladium Simulacrum, you're going to want mobility at every turn. It only has mobility 1, so eventually you're going to probably get into a situation just with natural gameplay where it's going to be backed into a corner and your opponent's going to be able to catch it. Now, if you're able to keep a couple extra lanes open, even if Palladium Simulacrum is trapped in one side of your board, you can use Whirlwind to move it to another area of the board. This allows you to keep using it for turns to come. So you can use Whirlwind as sort of a escape or ejector button to kind of move it out of the way of danger. In set 3, we have a card called Brigard Carrier, which has a similar ability where you want to be moving it every turn. So in Brigard Carrier, it's going to be a new card in the last winter that reads Mobility 1, and when this moves lanes, you may place a Gizmo minion in the vacated lane. So Whirlwind works on two axes with this. One, it helps you get your Brigard Carrier out from being trapped, but at the same time, it will also leave behind an extra Gizmo minion when you use the Whirlwind ability. So you can get two of those in one turn that way. Now, another good way of using Whirlwind is to use it in combo. So one thing that Slay creatures have as a disadvantage to them is that if you're not able to play it across from a creature immediately to kill something, it's very difficult to trigger that Slay ability in the future. Most savvy opponents will not play a creature opposing a creature with a strong Slay ability. What Whirlwind allows you to do is to move that Slay creature into position across from a creature it can kill in advance. So, you put out your Slay creature, maybe your opponent maybe it doesn't kill anything that turn just because of the sequencing. Maybe you're on Forge and they don't have a creature you can put it across from. They don't catch it that turn. Following turn, you can Whirlwind it and increase its attack, kill something even bigger than it normally could kill, and then you get its free Slay effect, such as with Bride of Frankenbaum, where you can get an extra free spell out of the exchange. Another combo that is going to be very fun in the last winter is to combine Whirlwind with Aerial Assault. So this is a new Aloyan card that reads, give a creature mobility this turn. This turn it gains when this moves into a lane with an opposing level 1, 2, or any creature at the highest level, you destroy the opposing creature. So with the Aerial Assault, you can play that on a creature, mobility it into place, and then Whirlwind it across from another opposing creature, getting a 2-for-1 out of Aerial Assault, clearing out 2 lanes. Also, you can actually reverse that. Give it the Aerial Assault, Whirlwind it to another position in the board to destroy something, and then mobility it over 1 more to kill another creature. So Aerial Assault, I think, will be very potent when you add it to Whirlwind in your arsenal as a way of just sort of putting the tempo in your favor by clearing multiple targets by just a well-timed Whirlwind Aerial Assault combo. It is confirmed that Whirlwind will be back in the last winter, so you may even be able to get this as a Betrayer in a deck with Whirlwind, which could be very fun. Now, these are just some basic combos, in addition to other ways to maneuver using Whirlwind. But I want to talk about one of my favorite combos with the Whirlwind ability. Now, if we look back at Whirlwind, we'll notice that it's missing a very important keyword. It says give a creature +4 attack and move it to any lane. It does not say give one of your creatures +4 attack and move it to any lane. This can be incredibly fun when you pair it with the card Turnabout. So if you're playing with Turnabout and your opponent knows it, they are going to do everything in their power to keep their creatures separated. They're going to put a creature in lane 1, lane 3, lane 5, or they're going to put them in lanes 2 and 4. They're going to do everything in their power to keep 2 creatures from ever being adjacent and to make your turnabout worthless at its first 2 levels, which require the creatures to be adjacent. One thing you could do is actually activate your Whirlwind on one of their creatures and shift it into position next to a second creature. Now you have a target for turnabout that can hit its neighbor with ease, turning turnabout plus Whirlwind into a 2-for-1 combo. The nice thing too is that you're increasing the attack of one of those creatures, increasing the likelihood that you'll take both the creatures out in that exchange. Other cards as sort of a runner-up to turnabout would be to consider cards like Ice Storm or Isolate. You can use Whirlwind not as effectively as turnabout to sort of reposition your opponent's creatures, but in certain cases that's a great way to sort of rearrange the battlefield into a favorable position for cards like those. So yeah, this concludes my deep dive on Korok's ability, Whirlwind. I'm excited to see it come back in the last winter. Hopefully this video has given you some things to think about when working with Whirlwind if you have a Korok with that ability. And yeah, so I'll put it out to the listeners. What are your thoughts on Whirlwind? It seems like to me it seems like at first blush it's a very simple ability, but it has a lot of combo potential, a lot of different use cases than are apparent at face value. If you have any stories about how you've used Whirlwind that I haven't mentioned, I'd love to hear about it. Please post in the comments below. Additionally, I'd like to continue this series on Forgeborn abilities, so if you have an ability we haven't talked about yet that you'd love to have a deep dive on, post in the comments, send me a message. I'd love to mull it over and think about how we can best use those abilities in the future. Again, thank you for watching this episode, and I will catch you guys on the next one.